So without further ado, let me actually introduce my friend Rose. We've been friends for what, 4 or 5 years?
At least.
At least?
At least, yeah.
Okay, 4 or 5 physical years. We actually had a couple of collaborations on her channel, and I think it wasn't on mine, but I think it was on Chris's channel, and this was back in 2014.
Yeah, it had to be around 14. I know we were friends before 14 because 14 was when I moved to Kauai.
That's right. That's right. So we're in. So we've been really like, very much kind of that very strong sort of soul family that kind of like, look, we drift in when it's a big deal, and then we each have our personal missions, but we're all part of the big, Oversoul mission as well. And so she is the author of a really, really good book for those of you who are interested in topics of, say, ascension, manifestation, quantum living. It's called Quantum Lucidity. It's available at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at barnesandnoble.com, or you can Amazon. Mm-hmm. You can do, you can order that for yourselves. But she actually has. It's a really, it's a good mixture of advanced as well as accessible. It's not something that, beginners are going to feel lost with, but it's not something where, for people who are more experienced, you're not going to feel like you know all of this, because it really does kind of cover all grounds, cover all bases. And we're actually going to be talking about quantum effect, especially as it relates to collective co-creation, how we are all creating this experience together. I feel like a lot of people, with what's going on just in 2020 in general, it's sort of, there's been sort of this monster of the month kind of theme, right? As we go through this very, very loopy feeling, right? First it's, okay, is there going to be World War III in January? That was the monster of the month. And then there's been politics, of course, is like this other thing always in the background, kind of the subplot. And then February, we had fires and floods and all kinds of stuff. And now we have the coronavirus. And that these are all things that are just passing through, right? Mm-hmm. Monster of the month. It's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? You've got one overarching theme of the story, right? And it's like, okay, so what are we dealing with? What's it about? Is it about the first? Is it about glory? Or is it just like a rando vampire candy episode? What are we dealing with here? And so these things are being collectively created, and they can be collectively uncreated. And that's what's really going on. Now, eventually it's all going to get uncreated anyway, but I want to talk with everyone about how we do this together. Yes, we will talk about the mechanics of manifestation to answer one of the questions that was listed earlier, because it is going to expand on the mechanics of how it happens. Because I think that it's better to talk about how these things occur than just simply try and give out a boom, 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 1, 2, 3. Yeah. This is what works for everybody. This is a one size fits all, and it's because it's time to grow up, right? We can't do that. We're out of that phase. But when it comes to that, I'm going to throw it over to Rose. How long have you been doing what you do? What's your story?
It's kind of been something that's been passed from generation to generation, but it skipped my mother and my grandmother. But they have always been card readers and palm readers, and they always were. They were healers. They would put herbal remedies together, and people from their communities would always come to them for for healing remedies, putting together. She would make soups for people and things like that. And, all my grandmothers did this. And well, then, the last 2 generations, it kind of skipped over because it was modern times, and it was more considered, of the devil, because they were religious. And so I grew up in Pentecostal churches. But I actually been doing this myself, picking it back up where my grandmothers left off for about 20 years, more than 20 years. So I just took off running. I didn't stop, because it was like all the familiarness of it. And it was like remembering, my ancestors in the midst of it all. So I do energy work, energy healing work. I am a Reiki certified, but I just go off on my own and do my own energy healing work. And the certification is just, it's just to make people feel better. But I've been doing the energy work for about 20 years, and I'm a card slinger like you. And
I was going to say, you're a reader, you're on Facebook, especially for those of you who really get into the live readings. I will actually grab Rose's Facebook for you guys, or if Rose, you want to, paste the link of the preferred account, because I know you got a couple. You're like me, you got like 9. She does get on and do live readings, and that was one of the things that I think a lot of people would appreciate, because while Rose and I are a perfect example of a coexisting, cohabitating multi-expression of how spiritual beings work and operate and serve, because Rose has a great skill set when it comes to healing work, when it comes to healing through readings, when it comes to also being able to not only help people kind of go beyond just what's happening to me. I think it's in your energy. I think it's in your field, where it's sort of like, look, while you're interacting, a lot of that density just kind of pulls off. And that's really what, if you guys are looking for a good healer and a good healing reader, because there are different types of readers out there, she's good for it. And I'd like to just, throw it to you, Rose, and see, could you maybe, for a lot of folks out there who might be new to this idea, or maybe just new to the, how would you explain the quantum effect of, say, social media, social media conversations, what we post on Facebook, what's going on, even on the quantum level, when we're even doing just ranting and venting, like what is happening on that collective level, and where does it go?
What happens is that we are all connected, mind, body, and spirit, and we're all connected to each other. We're connected to people on the other side of the planet that we've never met in our lives. And so when the collective, internet, is an entity of its own, and it's extremely powerful, it's become a consciousness of its own, because we feed it our consciousness collectively. And so when we go on, everybody, when somebody sees something on the news, or somebody's posting something on a social media, Facebook and Twitter are the two main ones right now. When we post, news, and we're posting some ugly event that was, filmed from someone's camera, the whole collective feeds it. And we go into anger, we go into fear, and then it spreads like wildfire. It's a ripple effect, and it goes like this, and we're manifesting with it together. And so we are manifesting the energy as a collective, of fear, or of joy, of happiness, excitement, or trepidation, or anger, hatred. And so we don't realize the power that we have when we work together, and we're always working together, whether we know it or not. So when we get on Facebook, or we're getting on Twitter, and we're seeing all this stuff that we don't like, we're feeding into it, because then we have to, get on that computer, and we type away and have to comment on something and disagree, or start an argument, or we're actually enjoying something together that is beautiful and profound and inspirational. So as a collective, it's just to be mindful and aware of our own energy, because then what we do is we take that energy and we go out into our world, to go to the grocery store or what have you, to an event, and we can change the energy the minute we walk into a room of crowded people. Have you ever been in a room where everybody, like the break room at work, and everybody's in the Monday mood? Everybody's quiet, they're tired, and don't want to be there. But then somebody walks in and they're like, hey, and then they change everybody's mood. That's how powerful we are. We have that great capacity to do those things. So when we take on the energy of what is on this entity called the internet, we take it out there with us, and we pass it along to everybody. That is more infectious than any disease. That is more contagious.
Yeah. And it's, you pull it in, don't you? You pull a version of that experience, a very, let's just say, personalized, almost diluted version of what you're watching into your experience. And sometimes that can happen because, you're engaged. And so you're not just having a conversation with Rose or Tim or whatever, but you are kind of making this energy exchange back and forth. And even if you're talking about something and you're talking about, oh, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about coronavirus, or we're going to talk about, this corporation that we do or don't like, or we're going to talk about politics. You're exchanging that energy. And the more you hold space for that, because we're going to talk about holding space as well, guys, because I think this is definitely a thing that readers, healers, spiritual workers, way showers, light workers, path watchers, there is a right way and a not so right way to hold space, by the way. So we need to talk about that. But when you're holding space for that vibration, holding space for that expression, you are also drawing a version of that experience into your life. I've had experiences myself where things that I got really maybe enmeshed with when it comes to, say, like a book I was reading, or maybe a movie I've been watching, or maybe a certain song that I'm listening to, maybe over and over and over again. And that starts to, it starts to have that quantum effect where you're pulling, that which resonates with that experience into your life.
There's a lot of people who don't understand that there's more to them and there's more to this world, and that we are picking a reality for ourselves. Yeah. And we make it very real. We manifest that reality for ourselves. And sometimes some people just shut themselves in a box because they honestly don't know how to get out of that box. And what I do when I have my sessions, I like, if they're not coming to me for reading, but the readings always lead to this anyway. But when they're not coming to me for reading, they come to me for my other sessions, which I call personal empowerment. Mm-hmm. It's about tapping you. I make you go into yourself and make you, look at yourself, and show not, well, this is what's wrong with you. No. I go in and I make you see yourself as who you really are, as a beautiful being here. And that, we all fall into this weird place, and I help you I give you just deeper insight from what I'm getting intuitively on you. And I help you understand yourself a bit more. Mm-hmm. And understand what you're capable of and how easy it is to get out of this box that we are in, so that you don't feel stuck. You don't feel hopeless. You don't feel like there's just no hope for you. Right. Or this, and I also kind of broaden the picture and say, yes, that there's beauty out there. We just don't see it because we're stuck here on this box called the internet. Right. And it only wants to show us one or two things. But there's a whole world out there of amazement. And there's miracles and wonders and magic out there that's more so than what we are actually seeing on the news or on internet. And we don't realize that because we've decided to put the blinders on and only set our attention and focus on certain things. So when people start to get it, because then they're like, they have the aha moment and they feel the weight lift on their shoulders, so because the first thing people do is they judge themselves for it. And they feel guilty, or they feel bad, or they feel stupid. And you're not stupid. You just have to open your heart to yourself. You have to reconnect to yourself, number one. Then the understanding of everything else plays in, and it all falls into place. It all starts to make sense once you do that. So if you're willing to open up to yourself and understand yourself more, then everything else starts to make a lot more sense to you. And it doesn't seem as, impossible. Right. And it doesn't seem as ugly or scary or what have you, whatever the person is going through individually. But it's about reconnecting to who you are and remembering who you are. We got to remember who we are. We aren't just here having this human experience. We didn't come here to just go through all the experiences we had just to give in, throw the towel, and die, Right.
Just, everyone gets sick now. No, I think that you touch on a good point, because I think that is one of the biggest, that is the great deception. And I think it happens, it is on a mind level, and it does happen to people where you fall into this great deception of what I see is all there is. And, or both, you have this other. And this is something I think that, and we talked about this yesterday, this is going away. And I feel like, people like you and people like me are working really hard. I think that we're finally kind of getting to a point where we're rising above the din of the 20 teens kind of, hashtag spirituality. And there's this point where you have to get where you kind of realize, like, no, you can't just hitch your wagon to a spiritual person and be dragged through. You can't hitch your wagon to another bandwagon in order to, I'm watching the spiritual person on TV. I'm watching the spiritual person here. You've got to go within. You've got to activate yourself. And that sounds to me like what you're doing. You're helping people activate themselves. Because that word empowerment, I don't know, for me, and I don't mean to, this is going to sound weird. I feel like that is one of those words that needs sort of to be reclaimed for what it is, because empowerment itself is about being in a situation where it's not that you feel confident enough to do anything. Right. It's empowered as in truly empowered, mind, body, spirit, yes. In coherent balance and harmony, complete open perception, aware and capable. And I think that I would say you go with that. Now go get that word back from those people.
It's more of tapping into who you really are. We are, this is just, I'm going to throw this out there. We are kings and queens, and we're emperors and empresses. We are priestesses and high priests. We are the magicians, and we are what we've been waiting for. And so when we get into that one vibration, at least that one first vibration, to where we start seeing above, how that in the Matrix, when Neo and Trinity finally make it above, everything, they see the sun for the first time. That's where we go to once we get out of this darker place, that we find ourselves in. And then it starts to make sense. And when these big events in the world start to happen on the global basis, then we see right through it. Mm-hmm. We know what's out there. We really know it's beyond that. We know what's beyond the surface. We know what is happening in the etherics, and we can tap into the other side of us, which is our spiritual side as a spiritual, powerful being. Right. That we're not just this physical flesh suit. We are more than that. We are star beings. We are souls. We are spirit beings here, and that we should be able to tap into what's beyond the veils. And all the information is there. All the questions get answered. And it doesn't always mean that we have to be able to interpret it with a human language, because there's no human language for the real understanding that's deep within us. So, I completely agree. And I think that one of the things that I've kind of encountered in trying to kind of bring this kind of topic up, right? Let's be conscientious and responsible with our co-creation. I'm not going to co-create negativity out there like that. I'm not going to co-create the spreading of coronavirus. I'm not going to co-create, bushfires and things like that. But that also means I have to be smart. Yeah. Not throwing my focus there also means not stopping to have a crisis workshop sometimes for a friend of mine who's just flipping out on Facebook. They might need some support, but we have to take the focus on what the support is really for, instead of making it about coronavirus, bushfires or politics. Because usually what happens when you're going through and you're going deep and you're going into that focus on empowerment, you find out that what's really running that fear show has nothing to do with what you're seeing on the external. It's reacting to it. But now you're getting a chance to work on what's going on in there. Get that program off your hard drive, so to speak. And that's why I think we have a really good opportunity not to be Mr. Toxic Positivity, because I don't think it's toxic positivity, at least what I'm about to say. And it's, when it comes to what's happening now, we have a chance to go within. There's a lot of stuff going on out there that is getting dismantled and breaking down on a spiritual level. And now it's starting to substantiate. And people are starting to realize, okay, a lot of the programming that we've had, right?
religious programming, right? Hitch your wagon to the spiritual guy and you can go about your life. He'll make it easier for you to get a good scratch ticket at 7-Eleven. No, that's not the point. Don't hitch wagons anymore. You go within, you activate yourself to be ready to actually be the sovereign creator being that you are. There's a point, though, where I think a lot of people are having some stuff come up collectively because a lot of people have not been working on that until now. A lot of people have not been thinking about that. And a lot of, I'm going to say, the last 10 years, even the spiritual community, a lot of mainstream, spiritual teachings and new age stuff was kind of focusing more on aggregation through surface scratching, right? Let's just draw in as many people, make it as simple and as applicable to mundane daily life as possible, and go no further. Now everyone's graduating, right? Everyone's graduating, even if they don't know that they're graduating. So how do we help people do that? Because, again, remember, guys, in that chat I had with Raphael a couple months ago, where I was saying, look, the shift is now moving at a faster pace. It was going at the pace of a certain population, and now it's going at the pace of a different population. What do you make of the speed up and how it's affecting people who might be feeling those sort of, am I being abandoned? I feel lost. I feel like I'm getting betrayed by this. This light stuff doesn't feel good anymore. They've been in this spiritual thing for so long, and now they're kind of having the other veil come off, and no one told them it was there.
I think that, I watch you all the time, in all your posts, and you and I have been saying a lot of the very similar things for the last year. And we both have been kind of telling everybody, you know what, you guys, it's going to just come up on you and you're going to be surprised. Yep. But so, we've got to just start getting more proactive in our walk here. And we need to kind of be on our toes and just kind of be consistent with ourselves, because there are things coming and then you're going to be caught by surprise and you won't like it. You and I both have been doing that for at least a year. Yeah. And so then when the all happens and they're all coming to us, the sky is falling, and I'm not making fun of those who are in true fear, it's just, but that's what's happened. And so when it's just, I think, I've had a couple sessions this week, with a couple new clients that were just like, oh, and I'm like, okay, first of all, we're going to do a breathing exercise to get you to calm down, because they were on full-on panic attack when I got onto the screen with them, and it was a matter of I didn't know, why didn't you guys? I'm like, yeah, we have. You just haven't been paying attention. You've only heard what you wanted to hear, and it wasn't like I told you so. It wasn't like duh, it wasn't anything like that. But I was like, okay, just go back to my page, go back to my blogs. And go back to my YouTube channel and look at all my videos, look at my blogs, look at my Facebook page. You will see it's all there. And, but for the sake of being here right now, and then we go through it and I calmly explain, okay, so you need to calm down. You're fine. But see, these people just need somebody to listen, and they need somebody to hold that space and stuff. But what's happening is that they're now, this is a jolt. This is something that's supposed to happen for those people. Yeah. This is a wake-up call. This is a great awakening wave we're going through. We've been going through little ones since at least 2012. Yeah. But this is the biggie. This is where all of a sudden a big majority of the vast, consciousness or the human collective are like being jolted right now.
Oh, 2020 is the 2012 everyone thought 2020 was going to be.
Right. And so this is actually, it's happening exactly the way it's supposed to be. And that's why there's others out there, which I know, you and I both said this, there's more of you and I out there. And there does need to be more, but this is what we have been here all along for. It's just a matter of just breathing, and we'll help you understand what's happening. We'll help you understand what you were going through, that you are waking up now. You've been stirred, you've been jolted out of your comfort zone. And and you're going to be okay, but let's just understand what's happening. Let's take a breath.
Yeah.
So that, it's just about, depending on the individual, we have to tap into where they are at, because a lot of people are in a different place with all of this. There's a collective shock, but at the same time, each individual is in another zone, and it's a different vibration, different frequency that we're all at. And so it's about them teaching them and showing them, we're here, we're okay, we'll get through this. We're all here together for this, and so I think that it's just that point of where, are we going to support each other and help each other through this? Or, I'm talking to everybody as a collective. Are we going to be here and support each other, or is it every man for themselves?
I think that you're absolutely right. I think the only thing that I would say is that people at this point, my cat has been shedding like crazy. You were on the phone with me. I was brushing him last night. He's not coming up for a brushing. He's coming up for attention, because I've not been very attentive this afternoon. But what was I going to say? One of the big things I would say might be of big help, though, is also paying attention to, again, we talk about how to manifest, more effectively, how to create, our reality more effectively. That was a question here that I wanted to just kind of click and say, this is what I'm answering, guys. So that's what's on there. There is no, when we talk about correct way of manifestation, that's part of the programming that you've got to kind of get rid of. It's don't look for the easy peasy 1, 2, 3 step, right? It's not about that. All it takes to create the reality you want is to know how to articulate it to yourself. And when I say yourself, I'm talking about all your higher levels in unity, right? As soon as you can coherently articulate what you want, specifically enough that it's a reality that can be created, and get into alignment with it, you will have it. Now, how you get into alignment is up to you. How you send that energy, how you sit in it, how you embody it, that is what matters. Get into alignment. Focus on vibrations, vibrational matches, study, but also at the same time, realize that when you are manifesting, you're always manifesting. You're always creating your reality. You're here to learn how to get it under control, and so that you are doing it with your own will. So everything that you have in your reality experience is exactly as you choose to accept as your reality experience. You're not here to learn how to manifest. You're here to learn how to get your manifestations under control. Pay attention to what you are introducing to yourself, what you are keeping with your spiritual hygiene. Don't co-create more mess if you don't want more mess. How do you help people get, understand whether, discern whether or not a certain space is maybe actually better for their spiritual, mental, emotional health or not? Because sometimes that kind of stuff can feel really validating, right? It can feel very much like I'm being heard. I've found my own people. I'm now with my sisters and my brothers who all have the same, struggles as I am. So how do you help people discern with that?
First thing that I do is I tap in to figure out whether or not, I let them talk. I'm feeling whether or not they really want to change. If they are just there to vent and stay in the frequency that they're at, or if they actually want to get out of that, if they really want to change their reality and change that frequency and such. And if they're not, I let them go, because it's like, okay, you created this reality for yourself, but I at least say, pay attention to observe yourself. Pay attention to the events that happen in your life, because, the more of what you focus on, you're going to get. It's cause and effect. It is your vibrational match, to your own frequency, to what you believe. And you're going to manifest exactly the energy that you were in this moment. So do you really want to change this? Are you happy there? Or are you here just to, nitpick and say what you want to say or what have you? Because I have to move on. There are people who want to change that I need to talk to. That's when I have to put up my own boundaries and just say, you're wasting my time. You're wasting your time. And because there are those, they have no intention on changing. They want to be there, but they are also miserable. But they want to know, they want to come to me and say, how do I make my life better, but yet stay in the same place that I'm at because I like this ugly, festering stuff going on, and I'm like, I can't help you then, because you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to let some things go, do some inner work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not willing to do that, then there's nothing that I can do for you.
You have to cultivate the ability to hold the vibration of what you want to keep in your life. I've seen that happen 1,000 times, when it comes to co-creation and manifestation work, because people all try to manifest something together, or they do it as a group, right? They do it as a, prayer circle, a meditation circle, drum circle, coven, temple, doesn't matter. They all kind of go about doing it together. And, one of three things will happen. One, it works and everyone keeps it and everyone's happy. Yay. And everyone gets to enjoy it. Two, it shows up, but it's distorted. It's sort of mal-shaped or malformed. And a lot of that has to do with, again, the emotional energy that went into it. Perhaps there was something in the statement of intent or in the expression of intent that kind of counteracted what was going on there. And that's a big deal, you guys. Like, your expression has to be in alignment with your intention. You cannot say my intentions are one way, but I express myself in a complete other way, and expect those to line up. If your intention is to maybe create a different circumstance for yourself in your relationship, then you don't avoid your partner, for extended periods of time, maybe enough to cool off if there was a fight, but you don't play a game with them. You don't make her wait for you to call, and you don't make him try to read your mind. You go through, you let go of all the scripts, right? Because that's what a script is. We've seen people do it on TV. We've seen our parents do it. We've seen, other people do it. So we try and do it. The only reason people use scripts is because they haven't found their own way yet. And align your intention with your expression. And if how you're expressing your intention doesn't hit the mark at all when it comes to what your intention is, start there. If your intent is this, then take a look at how you're expressing yourself, how you're expressing your energy, and what you're letting in. How does that work on a quantum level or from a quantum perspective?
Okay, well, the common thing that is a good example is that everybody has this sixth sense. They have this intuitive vibe that they can feel the vibe of others. So when you meet a stranger, and you immediately pick up on the vibration, whether we realize it or not, and you will say, "Oh God, there's something I don't like the way that guy. I don't like the vibes I'm getting." This guy kind of creeps me out, and you haven't said a word, and he might look like a normal guy, and he might be very nice and cordial to everybody and stuff, but you're picking something up. So that is his internal, that is just, by itself, because we don't have to really work at it. Whatever's internal is going to be felt outwardly. And it spreads, everybody energy recognizes energy, whether you think you're intuitive or not. And so when we're just, out and about and we just don't like the way this person feels and we've never met them before in our lives, that is what's going on internally, and you're picking up on that. So that is what is happening with us. Whatever is going on within us internally, other people are picking up on it. A lot of people just don't say anything because they ignore it, or they just don't think twice about it. And so that is when you start working on that internal beingness, your own frequency within, and start doing that inner work. And let's work through those fears. Where does it stem from? That's just one example of how many things we could do for our inner work. But when you are doing the work on yourself and going within, and when you start to to clear and heal some things from within. You start working on some things within and recognizing it within yourself and reconnecting to yourself. It starts to show, because then people start feeling the difference. Mm-hmm. And I have seen people who have gone through, my programs and have, spent, a lot of time with me helping them work through some deep rooted stuff. And people, they start telling me, well, you know what? I haven't changed my hair or anything, but everybody's like, what's so different about you? And they are like the best actor or actress on the planet. Nobody ever knew they were going through such deep stuff. Mm-hmm. So they were like, so it wasn't like my attitude that changed or anything. I'm just acting normal as usual. And everybody's saying, what's different about you? And it's because they're feeling their new frequency now.
And it kind of pulls you in. It's not like an attachment or a bonding kind of thing, but it does sync you up with other hearts. When you get into that place, you are going to start finally connecting. But your effort to connect needs to be expressed from a place of inner connection already. Inner connection on that quantum level. There is no separation. I'm already connected to Rose. We just happen to vibe very, very much on a similar wavelength. We're on that very same frequency, same, kind of level of consciousness. And when you start to work on that, you start to get that, because you're always getting a glimpse in the external of what exactly your energy field is capable of holding and creating. And so when people kind of come together, a lot of people who kind of started getting on a lot of political bandwagons and a lot of group bandwagons, and they were very angry, and there was a lot of, antagonism, and, but deep down on the inside, a lot of these were sort of like weird brotherhoods and sisterhoods of commiseration. So they kind of got sucked up by this bigger thing that's, of course, being controlled by a lower level entity. Ultimately, they've still not seen any progress. If anything, possibly more of a degradation of their circumstances since X, Y, and Z. That can happen with, again, the friends you choose to keep around your space, because they're also gonna hold that space with you. You got to look at your friends. You got to look at what's going on with your family. Don't work with scripts. Nobody is supposed to do anything. So get over, if you've still got an old script or an old program, my friends are supposed to do this. My girlfriend's supposed to do this. You're my husband and men are supposed to do this. Or my family's supposed to get rid of the scripts, guys.
Yeah.
Connect with what is in your highest interest and your highest trajectory. Call out to your Oversoul group. And you'll find people in your group on your level of consciousness, right? And guess what? The more you work on yourself, the more energy you're actually sharing and imbuing your Oversoul group with. So there are certain groups out there right now that are very powerful and very strong. And yes, very much working on the light side of things. And then there are some groups that could, but they need to lift themselves up right now. And they need to work for, again, bringing things up in not just a one-sided way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people right now, there's this big, shift equinox is going to be huge. I also feel like as we get into, we talked about solstice as well. There's going to be more, right? If you guys are focusing on just taking it one monster of the day at a time, look at the bigger picture.
Stay present.
Stay present, and just pay attention to where you're giving your energy. And are you feeling good because it's healing, or are you feeling good because it's numbing? And there's a difference.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Just remember your sacred space.
Yeah.
Just
Absolutely.
Remember your sacred space, and the more that we expand in our conscious level, it spreads. And so you can walk into a big room and your sacred energy is filling the room. So, just remember that that's who we are. That's what we are. And that's how we affect the world around us. And that's how they affect us.
Yeah, no, I've been feeling it right now. Like, I don't know if you can feel it as well. Like my whole room is just like there's like a, I would call it there's like a gold, it's weird. It's like a gold shell almost, and like it's full. It's not empty. It's just full.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of like, so we were talking about yesterday. Like, no, I told you as soon as we started talking, something would just kind of like just freaking get. I'm glad. I can't believe we waited so long to do this. Okay, y'all. I'm going to turn off my camera, mute my mic for 5. I'm going to run to the restroom. Everyone, restroom, bathroom break. Think about Karen. Yeah, you're going to be feeling buzzy. This stuff is getting through there. Like I said, as soon as, and I've noticed that because those of you who've been listening to me know I've been on the Oversoul thing. I've been getting this like, okay, you've got your primary mission, but here is like this submission that you have to also carry on. And so whenever I start talking about Oversouls, the atmosphere just changes, and it's like, oh, that's right. All right. Keep talking about Oversouls. Get that damn meditation up. Because I've not been doing it yet. I haven't done the guided meditation yet. And I know that might be why higher self is just like, not necessarily stalled, but it's kind of like, because he's not stalling progress, but what it's doing, it's kind of like, okay, but it's coming real slow. It's like, really? Really, Nico? And I'm like, I'm sorry. Anyway, okay. We're taking 5. Be back at 45 after. Honestly, let's answer this really quick for Brian. Okay, so if you have heard of the Headspace, the meditation app, would it be a good place to start? It's been helping a lot. Sometimes it's hard to find the motivation to go within. My personal experience, though, when it comes to any kind of guided meditation work, or especially when you're working with theta waves, you can't use your phone. Phone will compress it, and then you won't have what you think you have. And so for anyone out there, especially if you're using tones for clearing of yourself or your house, things like that, make sure it's coming from a device that's not going to compress it. Now, what you can do if you feel like, you've only got your phone and maybe you don't want to do it on your laptop or something like that, find a way to maybe send it to your TV if you have that set up, and you can do kind of like a cast like that. But phones, if you think you're looking at something at, 600 plus hertz, a phone is going to compress that, and you're not going to have the same experience with the theta waves there. So that would be my opinion there, but I don't know much about Headspace. What do you know about the Headspace app, Rose?
I agree with you. I don't use it that often. I do. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Oh yeah.
Okay. No, I just think that the phone does kind of compress it a lot, and I think that you got to be very careful with some of that too. Make sure that you've got a good headset on. Listen on your laptop. And I think that you have to be careful because it does mess with your frequency a bit, because that's what it's basically doing. It's shifting your frequency, and it's probably aligning chakras and things like that for you. Some people might need just little doses at a time, because some people are extremely sensitive to that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, just be, take your time with it, and just, do it little by little. Don't do too much. Sometimes I think that I've seen people have a little bit too much of a reaction to it. If they did it too much, if they listened to it for like, 2 hours or something, because then they're buzzing all day long, but not in such a really good way. Not in a bad way either, but it kind of just throws them off a bit, especially if you have a busy day and you've got to get out and get in your car and drive and things like that. Make sure that you're in a space to where you've got, a whole afternoon or evening or what have you. You're not going anywhere. You don't have plans. You're not going back to work. It's best to do those kind of things when you are like on downtime, right, and you're not expected to get in your car and drive and go do a lot of activity and stuff. Drinking lots of water too, because whenever you shift your frequency and do energy work on yourself like that, it does. The physical, mind, body, and spirit are all connected. And so you really want to make sure you're keeping the water intake. And because it does deplete our physical energy, it depletes, our hydration and stuff when we do energy work on ourselves. Every time I do energy work on people here in my healing room, I always tell them, now go home, drink a lot of water today, because because the energy work is very real and it's very powerful. We may not feel, the effects of it like that, but it does a lot more than we realize to ourselves. So those are very powerful to do.
Well, and water right now is kind of going through a very interesting sort of upgrade and uptick. And when it comes to the amount of energy it can store, water, I mean, as we're going through this shift, and these veils are very much coming down, a lot of that higher, photonic frequency is really kind of it's settled in the water first, so it's also a good way to kind of hold the coherent shift that you're going through when your body's doing this activation, because I think there is such a thing as not necessarily an activation done wrong, but an activation that, if it's premature or it's not nurtured very well, depending on what kind of activation you've got going on, there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on right now where a lot of people kind of doing some they're getting activations and stuff they're not aware of. It's almost like X-Men or something, where everyone's powers are kind of like turning on. They don't know that's what's going on. And depending on what's happening with how they're treating their body that day, what are you consuming? I mean, because a lot of what is happening, getting away from the events, right? We'll talk about them some more in a sec, but they're monsters of the day, right? Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's not the overarching plot. It's just a random break in the plot line for a monster of the day. When you are in a space where you're kind of reacting to the fear, but you're also going through these activations at the same time, it's going to feel even more unpleasant. The people who are it feels worse in that middle, where you're 1 foot here, 1 foot over there, because you're starting to get this feedback pulse from the higher frequencies, from these higher vibrations. And what's happening is that you're dealing with a certain light signature that does not permit distortion to exist. The light from source does not do distortion. It doesn't create distortion. It doesn't create discord or dis-ease or anything like that. And it doesn't abide that to exist. So when you start to feel that feedback pulse of, whoa, oh my gosh, am I incompatible with this? No, you are compatible, but there's something that you're carrying either in your physical field or in your energetic field that is incompatible. And this is your cue to know when to start looking into release. A lot of activations are going on of old spiritual templates and interfaces that people have that they probably haven't learned about. It's not been properly taught. These are, going back to old soul templates, old spiritual expressions. Yes, we are talking a lot of starseed stuff, Lemurian stuff, inner earth stuff, master level stuff. And that's all going on in people regardless of their level of experience with this, or the level of exposure with this. And so their power is sort of amplifying. So now they need to take extra responsibility with their expressions and co-creation, or else, there is a corrective wave coming. I'm not trying to say that in a fearful way, but there's a corrective wave coming here, and we'll be seeing that, especially as we get into late spring up here in the northern hemisphere, late autumn in the southern hemisphere. Somebody had asked a question here, and this is from Pupak as well as looks like another person, Ob. So we want I'm answering both questions at the same time, because you know how we go. So one asks, what if you hold a space but others don't respect it and become against you, because they are not able to respect your boundaries? And then the other question is, how can one hold space for family members who have substance abuse issues? And so let's talk about that.
Just remember that you're also protecting your own sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the most loving and healing thing that we can do is to just not be in that space in the first place. You don't need to, not for everybody, but there are those that we end up because they're family, we can't avoid them, or what have you. And it's a matter of making sure that your sacred space, like your home, for example, if they're coming to your house, or if they live in your house, you on a regular basis have to do the work to make sure that you are lifting your household into a higher vibration. And it's sometimes it's work, because especially if that person lives in your household, if it's a sibling or what have you, or a significant other, you've got to maintain your space in that house and your space around you. And you know, what happens is that we don't realize is that, you know, holding space doesn't mean that we always have to be talking to somebody about something. It doesn't mean that we always have to dig in and have heart to hearts. Sometimes the holding space is just being that presence, being that frequency. And so when we find it toxic, that means that we put ourselves in a compromising position, because when we are really holding that space and really having ourselves in that frequency and our surroundings, our household, that there's nothing that it's literally a supernatural thing, because it bounces right off, and they feel it, and they can't stand to be in that frequency. You know, I see a lot of people saying, how do I do this? How do I take care of them? What do I say? How do I, you know, first and foremost, we can't impose on someone else as well. Sometimes just being, and sometimes just our own frequency and embodying who and what we really are. And if we are really going to be that high vibrational being that we want to be, or that we aspire to be, then we really have to become it. We have to embody it, and we have to be living it. And so when you are in that space that they can't help but feel it, you actually raise the vibration. I hope that you receive this, but I have actually seen people sober up in the space of another who was in a high frequency, because they wouldn't have it. They were like, nope, this is my space. If you're going to come into my space, then you're going to be lifted up in frequency. You're going to be raised in vibration. And I've actually seen people physically sober up because that energy is that powerful of that other person. And so this is how a lot of it works. And they didn't have to say anything to that other person. You know, they didn't have to say, well, you're in my space now. You know, They didn't do anything like that. They were just, hey, how's it going? You know, and it happens, you know, sometimes it's just our own essence that can change the vibration and frequency of another who's around us. Sometimes when somebody is in severe depression, or if somebody is physically ill, you know, with a disease like cancer or something, and they're in a lot of physical pain and suffering, sometimes being in the higher frequency of somebody else, it dissipates their physical pain.
Yes.
And so, yeah, go ahead. I want to hear what you've got to say.
Okay, fine. Well, no, because I was just about to say, because I think this is kind of like what we were talking about with the phrase empowerment earlier. I feel like this is, again, a disambiguation of what holding space is, because I think a lot of really well-meaning people, they think that holding space just kind of stops at leaving an open forum, you know, and a clear space for anything and everything to just run through. And that's not what holding space is. Mm-hmm. Holding space is holding, yes, that vibration, holding the energy, you know, keeping the space. Being a space keeper means you are keeping things in such a high vibrational way where everything that is coming through there, yeah, it's getting purified, it's getting divinitized, it's getting cleared, but also at the same time, it is elevating the frequency of all around them. Holding space for somebody does not necessarily mean that you are allowing, you're making a declaration of a dumping ground, or you're making yourself a dumping ground. And I think that is a mistake that a lot of, I don't want to say early people, because that sounds reductive, but I will say a lot of people who might just be kind of taking on that term in the best of intentions are not doing as well as they could. And I think now is their chance to do it. And I do see a lot of them doing it now. And I think that more will happen, you know, as we kind of move into the late March, April months, where people are starting to pay attention to, like, look, I've got to actually hold this energy. I can't, holding space doesn't just mean I let the space kind of just go wherever it's going to go. And really redefine what that word is for themselves. Because, it's, if you have to, it's a really tight, really fine line, because it's like you're aware that you're holding a space or a template or an energy field for people that not intentionally, or hopefully not intentionally, and not with judgment, but on some level are going to bring in some measure of defilement, right? And again, no judgment. We all carry it sometimes. It's sickness, crappy energy we got from somebody else, something we may have accidentally got thrown off from at work or whatever. But, a good space holder and a good space keeper is going to hold a space where that's not permitted to exist, and it doesn't go out and manifest anything, and it doesn't go out and create anything.
If you are compromised too easily, then maybe it's not your forte for now, until you figure out a way to actually navigate your frequencies and have a handle on it. It's kind of like, don't go do an exorcism on somebody if you've never done that before,
Yeah.
And so, you've got to make sure that you're able to keep yourself in that sacred frequency and hold it there. And, but don't just go all out there and think that, having a little bottle of holy water is going to go and take care of the world, And so, and I'm not making fun of people or anything like that. It's just a reality that we all need to face. If it's not our forte, then let's not get ourselves involved in it, and let's work on and honing in on our own space, our own energy, and don't put yourself in a compromising position deliberately like that, because it can do more harm than anything else to you.
A lot of the people that volunteer to be like the savior, because they're going through their own thing and they think that, all right, I'll heal other people and we'll all go on my journey together, that kind of energy, to turn their healing journey into kind of a mechanic to work on other people. I feel like that's also a form of space holding, air quotations for people listening on a phone, that also needs to just kind of stop. Because again, there's just more of that energy being thrown out for that quantum effect, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's like, instead of one person vibrating, you've got 200 or 10,000, right? All just vibrating in the same cyclical, dysfunction, and we're not going anywhere. I mean, what do you do in a situation? How do you help people get out of situations like that? What do you do when you kind of realize, this person's involved in not the practitioner, but maybe like somebody who's dealing with that. Like, this person's holding space for me, but I don't think they're doing a very good job. Like, how do you help people understand whether or not somebody's doing a good job holding space for them?
A lot of it is the receptivity. If it depends on what they're open to. It also depends on if they're willing to hear what the person whom they're going to has to say. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe you need to, there's options out there.
Yeah.
I know that if I am not helping somebody, I'm okay. I don't feel like, insulted by it or anything. I'm like, you know what? Okay, if I'm not helping you in this situation, I'm not helping you. Seem to not be getting it or receiving it, either way, or I'm not, I'm not actually helping you understand this better, what have you. I know somebody who will be able to help you, go ahead and give them a call, and set up a session with this person, because I know they're amazing. And, and I wouldn't send you to just anybody. I want you to get the help that you need, and so sometimes, you've got to be willing to, just say it's not just this one person. If somebody is not, you're not clicking, sometimes it's just a matter of, you're just not connecting. You're just not clicking, and that's okay too. So be okay with the fact that just because you went to this person and everybody has raving reviews about them, you just might be not connecting on a certain level. You just may not be able to really be on that level of being able to click with this person. And that's okay, because maybe that person's just not it. Sometimes that's just all it is. They're just not the one. Right. And so, on both sides, the practitioner needs to be able to be okay with that and refer to somebody who they know would be able to probably help this person. And that person has to be okay with, it's not them. And again, there's a plethora of things. It could just be that you're not receiving, or it could be that you've already got a wall, because I know this, NICO, and I know a lot of people that are in similar or our line of work, that when people come to us, they're coming into a place of, and I mean this in a good way, because it's not a bad word, okay? But they're coming to us vulnerable. They're opening themselves up to us, and it's a trust that they're coming to us with. And sometimes a person may not trust you at all, regardless of the fact that they paid you for a session, and they're not still willing to open up to you or to receive something from you. We're all individuals and we all have different needs. So there's that, mutual respect and honor and trust that we have to have. So sometimes people come to us and they got this big, thick wall right here. And so, it's just so many different things, and you have to understand, NICO will feel it too. If I go to NICO and I've got a big old wall up, he's going to be like, girl, what's up with you? You're not.
Well, it's true. And sometimes you have to have those ice-breaking moments, right? Yeah. Or even in video file readings where it's, sometimes I'm kind of like, I'm sorry, your question doesn't make any sense. I need to be able to tap in, because the way those of you who've gotten readings with me know I've said this 1,000 times. My higher levels, my higher self, all of my, higher levels going all the way back, it's the way they communicate and the way I communicate, we all link up and we align. It's only with purpose, which means I can't go and just that's why I don't offer myself as sort of a healer and a space holder in that way. Because sometimes when you are in a healing position, you will get people who kind of come in and it's really like, they're not so much asking questions as they're kind of like upending a 1,000-piece puzzle box on the table and telling you their life story and like where everything's gone horribly wrong and it's all over. And you could tell like they're processing. And you got to know sometimes, okay, well, this person's processing. They're not really in productive mode. And that's good if they're aware of that, because you cannot process and be productive in the same instance. It's really not good. People who try and do spiritual work or even just regular work while processing can really, really prolong their suffering in that way. So, now make sure we don't overprocess, because there is such a thing as overprocessing, just like there's a thing as getting too productive too soon. But I think that, when you have a moment where you're kind of trying to figure out, well, is this person right for me? Is this person not right for me? Also see what's going on with me. Is this person really focused on, is this person seem only focused on productivity? Okay, something tells me that they're not going to have what I need. They're not going to be able to give me what I need. They're focused way too much on productivity right now. And that's a good thing. There's something wrong with that. But yeah, I'm not going to go to them. Or is this person over here focusing more on internal work and healing but I need to help work on an external issue. Maybe I'll need to make an adjustment here. Just know what you're getting, because we're kind of undoing a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about the spiritual world, especially online, where, again, and I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but me, I'm processing through it as well. Or it's like, no, we're not all the same. I wish I could find the people that made it sound like, oh, as long as you go to any spiritual person, they'll all say the same thing about the law of attraction, and they were all certified at the same place in LA. And it's like, no, I'm not certified in anything, damn it. But also,
yeah. I mean, it's like that, Tony Robbins and his technique doesn't work for everybody. Just because he's famous and a millionaire, because he's got the whole world as his student or client, doesn't mean it works for you too. We're different,
And some of it just doesn't work anymore. Some of it's an old dynamic. It's an old light dynamic. It doesn't work anymore. A lot of stuff that's out there doesn't work anymore. And that's something that it was a dynamic of the old paradigm that is already, I mean, what do you think is going on behind the scenes with all of this stuff, right? A lot of stuff is getting dismantled. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the collapse. There is a grand displacement going on. All of the artificial, and we talk about what's going on behind, with coronavirus, what's going on with all of this stuff. There has to be a point where you understand that what's happening is people are, these fear moments get created, right? Sometimes they're, viruses, sometimes they're wars, sometimes, but they occur, they manifest. And I don't want to encourage, because again, there's such a thing as getting stuck in the conspiracy processing world. So I don't want to go there either, because that's not productive. But what people often do is that they don't realize that there's an effort to try and keep a loop going. There's an effort to try and keep a script going, but that's impossible now. And so we have to look and see, okay, the old dynamic is dying off. That's really what this is. The old dynamic is dying off. Whether it's burning in the bushfires, whether it's coronavirus in Washington, whether it's, near war, World War III, or whatever's going on, or economic disaster, stop trying to put the old paradigm back together. And if you are a light worker, a spiritual worker, a way shower, a path watcher, you need to get ready, because you're going to get hit here pretty soon. And I'm not saying hit with like a judgment, but it's a litmus test. Yeah. What are you doing? Are you serving the transition to the new paradigm, or are you still trying to polish the matrix as it's falling down? Because you don't want to be on that thing when it falls down. Okay.
Yeah.
Just something to think about.
Change is upon us all. Nico and I were talking last night, and we were discussing how we ourselves are, and other people that are in this field that we were talking about, that we both mutually know, the old ways aren't working for us anymore. We're even changing up our work, the way we're doing things and what we're doing and what we're cutting out, what we're changing, what we're amping up and stuff. Yep. And so even we're realizing what's no longer working. And we are trying to put ourselves in that place to what does work now. And it's new to us as well, as we adjust, as in our own life path, even. And so the old ways just don't work. It's kind of like, the old paradigm wants us all to put them on life support. And it's a vegetable now, and the 12-step programs just don't work anymore. I'm using that as a metaphor, for every kind of, help mechanism. That those old 12-step programs don't work anymore. Now the universe is doing something new. There's fresh energy coming in. Yeah. And go ahead, Finn. Go on. Yeah. No, I was just saying, so that we have to be willing to adjust to the change as well.
There's enough beginner stuff out there. You need to start encouraging people to be independently motivated to study and start learning the new dynamic. We do got to go here in a sec, guys, because these broadcasts are only supported for about 2 hours at a time, which I think is actually really cool because it allows us to have really good quality, but then it just shuts us down. So I do got to say, if you have any final thoughts, Rose, we will be bringing Rose back on if she will say yes.
Of course. Yes, of course.
We'll have Rose coming back here pretty soon because I'm loving this platform that I just found. So I'm going to be doing more and more and more of that. And like I said,
you know what? Let's breathe, everybody. We're fine. The good things are happening as we speak, and more good things are coming in the midst of all of this. Yeah. And it does get better. Okay. Yes, there's more weird stuff coming up, but come on, we were born for such a time as this. Yeah. And, you can always come to both, Nico and I, and yes, we'll definitely be talking more on all of this stuff. You can find me on YouTube. Just put in my name, Rose Ferrachi. I have a blog and everything, and all that info's on my videos. I've been gone from YouTube for a while, so it's kind of crickets right there.
Post your Facebook that you want people to look at in the chat bar here.
Okay.